Now, we all like to travel in the highest level of luxury possible, but how does that change when we start bringing extra people in our group? Today, we're going to talk about that. My name is Sean, and I'm here with a very special guest as well as my co-host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherwin, Sean's co-host on the Credit Card BS podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Luke from Luke's Points and Miles. So, Luke, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I am Luke from Luke's Points and Miles, YouTube, obviously. And I like to describe myself as I'm the dad in the Points and Miles group. I'm the older guy and the dad, and I think that's where my style kind of is a little bit different than a lot of people's in this space.
That's awesome.
I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit about like how you got into Points and Miles, and then eventually how you got into Points and Miles YouTube specifically.
Well, I think my story is probably not unique, where obviously my first kind of journey with credit cards didn't go as planned, and I ended up picking up some credit card debt. And when you do that, you fix it. And along your journey of fixing it, you start learning that, hey, there's another way to do this. You can earn cash back or points or miles. And I just kind of a continuation from there. I was sent to the West Coast to Santa Cruz for a work trip. And I said, let me bring my wife and little boy with me. And those 4 or 5 days in Santa Cruz really changed everything. I had traveled quite a bit when I was young and when I was in the Navy, but as an adult, I had really left the whole travel scene for quite a while. And that trip really sparked what was in most of us, where we like to go a lot of different places. So that kind of intersected the same time where I was really learning about travel rewards. Now, fast forward to worldwide pandemic, and I think we all knew that we had to pick up something to keep our brains and our hands occupied. So I said, I'm finally going to learn this Points and Miles game, and we're going to go places. And from there, just got into it as a lot of us, almost as an obsession, and here we are.
Awesome. So I was wondering if you could kind of share a little bit about your travel style, how you like to plan trips, and maybe this will be a way to segue into our main topic today, which is family travel and tips and strategies for that.
So for myself, I pride myself on being really versatile. I do international business class. I stay at Conrad's, but I also do domestic economy. I also stay at Holiday Inns. I travel solo. I travel with an old Navy buddy, but my bread and butter is family travel with my wife and my son. My ultimate goal in this entire space is to make sure that not only has my son been to every NFL stadium before he graduates high school, but he's went through a couple different passports, get everything stamped and getting a really good perspective on what's on the planet. We live in what used to be a farming village, so it's kind of suburban Midwestern America. And my main goal is to expose him of everything else out there, to give him a much better perspective on life before he leaves us.
That's really cool. So let me ask you, when you're planning these trips, right, when you're traveling, so you're traveling with 3 people, you're going to these international destinations, what is usually your style of finding award flights, trying to book hotels? How does that change when you're traveling, with 3 people as opposed to just 1 or 2?
It's much more difficult, obviously. There are certain programs where you're not going to find 3 flights or 3 seats in business class. For instance, the Italian airline that you can use Virgin Atlantic points to fly to Rome, there's only 2 seats on those flights, 2 award seats. So I think the best thing that I have in mind when I'm planning those trips is kind of being flexible. Obviously, flying blue, you can find as many seats as you want on business class. That's a good start. Using Aeroplan and flying Swiss Air, there's usually a ton of seats. That's not the case on every single airline or every single program. So you have to be flexible, and you have to, I don't want to say take what you can get, but you have to really seize the opportunities when you see them.
I think Luke brings up a really good point about this. Not only do you need to be flexible, but you also kind of want to study the patterns of different airlines, different programs to see which places are stingy with releasing award availability, which places release a lot of award availability. I mean, one trend I've seen is airlines starting to restrict business class award seats to their own members using their own miles. So even if it's cheaper to book with a partner, sometimes you just don't have the opportunity to book the number of seats you need to through a partner because they don't open up enough seats to the partners. I'm wondering if you've had experience of this phenomenon or have developed a strategy about it.
Really, I kind of look at it in the bigger picture, and my biggest strategy is I kind of accrue points in all 4 major transferable currencies. So I have the equal number of points in Amex MR points, Citi Thank You points, and a lot of people like to focus on one, but fortunately or unfortunately for me, I have enough spend to kind of accrue points, across the board. And like I said, I really try to be flexible. And if let's say we want to go to Spain, but the real award availability is in Portugal. Well, we may pivot and go ahead and do Portugal because with only 3 of us, if I had 3 kids, they could sit in the back. They could sit with each other in the back. But I can't let one kid sit in the back, and I can't let my wife and my kids sit in the back. So for me, I really try to be as flexible as possible with my resources as well as where we're going. And I really just ride the waves. I don't, not too strict on exactly where I want to go and exactly when. I kind of keep it fairly open. And of course they have input on where we go, but it's...
No, I think that's a really good mindset. That's pretty much like how I plan my things as well, where it's like I never ever think like I need to go here. How do I make that happen? It's always, okay, where can I go that's got a good deal? Where can I go? I want to go to Asia, for example. Okay, are there business seats where I don't really care if it's to Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, wherever I can get a good deal, I'll go. And then, you work around that because that's how you get some of the best value. So I think that's a really cool mindset. I'm also curious for you on
can I add one thing?
For sure.
Really quickly about flights is, so I usually plan travel for my family of 3, actually. So myself and my parents. So kind of sort of similar to Luke's situation. One thing I've found helpful is to keep an eye out on huge award dumps. So remember, sometimes airlines release award availability sporadically. Like last year, there was a huge award dump from Etihad, their A380 first class product, where someone probably fat fingered it and released 10 first class seats in each flight literally had 10 seats. And I was like, holy cow, I have to jump on this for myself and my parents. And we were able to pull that off, and it was an incredible trip. And the reasons we were able to do it was me keeping an eye out on these award dumps. Check out our Discord, by the way, where a lot of these announcements happen before the major blogs cover.
Link in the description.
Yes. And B, we had a lot of points in different currencies built up. So, at this time, we were like, okay, let's transfer to Aeroplan. We can go and make it happen very quickly. Because, once these award dumps happen, a lot of people try to book them rapidly and whenever. So, it's about kind of being prepared, as Luke's saying, having a diversified set of points and miles so they can be ready to go if something happens. And also C, as Luke mentioned, we are flexible about our destination. We were initially going to do a Europe trip, and we weren't going to go to the UAE at all. But I'm like, this is such a cool award flight. I'm going to add this segment to Abu Dhabi, and I'm going to add Dubai to my trip. And that was kind of a last minute spontaneous decision. So sometimes we build our trips around the awards that we can find rather than the other way around.
I think it's a really good point, and it's also why you have to kind of commit a lot of the times when something like this, a really good deal pops up. I also wanted to ask you, Luke. So you mentioned you like to go to Europe a lot. How do you manage the hotel side? Because I know in Europe it can be pretty tricky where the hotel rooms will be small. They may have only allow 2 people per room. How do you usually go about that?
That's a tough question because it is difficult in Europe. Take Hilton, for example. If it's myself and my wife, we can get, let's take Amsterdam. We're going to Amsterdam just in a few days. But if we wanted to do the Hilton outside the Central Station, just myself and my wife, super easy redemption, plenty of award availability, 75,000 Hilton honors points. But as soon as you throw in an 8-year-old, it's 375,000 miles or points. And in a lot of hotels, you just can't do it. So what I've found in Europe is it just takes a lot more effort to find a room with two queen beds or with a pull-out sofa, which I've seen in Europe. They're not a fan of pull-out sofas at all. So for instance, when we're going to Amsterdam, I ended up kind of switching it up and going boutique. We're staying at like a Max Brown hotel on the canal, and we don't normally do that, but I really saw that as an opportunity to do something different. And like I said, I'm in all four ecosystems. I used my Capital One travel credit to book that hotel. And I'm really positive on thinking that's going to be a fun experience outside the norm. But then we got really lucky in Malta, and I found 5 nights. They have no problem with an extra kid. So that was the same as anywhere else. But I think you just have to be more diligent. People will, I'll get a lot of hate for this, but you might as well scratch any Hyatt ideas, because Hyatt will not have award availability with children ever in Europe, from what I've seen. I mean, just from my experience. And Italy's really tough as well. And like you said, the rooms are small. You almost have to go about it. Well, I will say this. Let me retract my last statement about Hyatt. We stayed in Frankfurt at a Hyatt, and it was one of those, I'm not sure what class it was, like JVD, like a different kind.
JDV, yeah.
It was huge. It was like 1,400 square feet, 2 bedrooms. It was amazing. So I really think you have to do more work. And if anybody says they're not doing work in this game, I don't believe them, because if you're doing multiple people and you're doing multiple trips a year and you're doing all your calculations and all your earnings, it's a lot of work. Most of the people I know laugh at me for doing this because they just cut the check. They don't even think. They just call a travel agent and cut the check, and that's it. They laugh at us. But it's just more work. It's tough.
But yeah, you can get some amazing value. That reminds me of like an interesting story. Is I was helping my girlfriend plan a trip. She was traveling with her dad, her brother, and like other relatives. It was a total party of 9 people, and they were going to Bali. And it was like, what are we gonna do, right? Like, how are we gonna help them get a nice place? And they ended up doing like half Airbnb. But one thing interesting we did is at the Alila in Mangus, Bali, it's only a Category 1 hotel. So we just ended up booking them 5 rooms. And it was like still only 25,000 points a night for all 5 rooms. So it's like pretty insane how good a value we could get. But yeah, you're right. It just takes like a lot more work to find good options like that.
One alternative is the Airbnbs and VRBOs, because I was planning a trip to Ireland with 5 of us. Yeah, 5 of us. So very difficult. And I think if you kind of move away from full service hotels, which is what I prefer. I like to be pampered. I like to be in a full service place, but you can kind of move over to maybe some unique properties. Ireland, as an example, has a bunch of castles you can stay in. And listen, when I say you can stay in castles, I don't mean you can stay in a room in a castle. You can rent the castle. It's got like 4 bedrooms. It's in the middle of nowhere. And
oh my God.
Like arrow ducts and all these different things and cannons. And so that we ended up, we were going to book a castle. We ended up canceling that trip altogether. When you have that many people, that's the other challenge. Their plans change, and their abilities to travel can change. So you have to be super flexible all around when you're with a group like that.
Are you familiar with the Wyndham and Castles partnership?
I'm not. No, I just started researching Wyndham, and I'm starting to really like what I see.
Yeah. Sean, do you know about this Wyndham?
I know they have like the cottages.com partnership.
Yes, that's what I was referring to.
Oh, okay. Can you book castles on that?
I meant cottages, but they're kind of the same. Like you can book like this entire mansion. It's essentially with points.
Is the redemption still good on that?
I'm sure,
because I know they killed the Vacasa.
I think they charge you per bedroom rather than like what the cash rate would be, so it could still be a good value if you go to those places. But I mean, either way, I think Luke brings up a good point where like in Europe, oftentimes I do a search for 2 people, see a bunch of results, I add the 3rd person, it all disappears, or they want me to book the suite that costs a good gazillion more points. So you have to be more creative. One thing I found is that when I'm going to these places, 3 people, I can no longer reliably. Like in the US, I always go to Hyatt.com first, do my search there, and usually I can find some good option. But that's why I think it pays to have like credit cards or in multiple hotel loyalty programs, so you can bring in a different program if they happen to have an opportunity you need and stuff. So like, I mean, as much as I love Hyatt, sometimes IG has come in clutch where I literally can't find anything for two people. All right. So, it's just good to have more options, as I say, and it's kind of like being prepared for every possible scenario in a sense. But I mean, Luke, have you ever considered booking suites directly with Hyatt? Because most hotel loyalty programs only allow you to book a standard room with points, right? And that makes it more challenging when you have a third person. Hotel won't let you have a third person, but sometimes those suites can be bookable with points, and they can accommodate more people, and they could, I mean, it's going to cost more points, but could potentially still be good value. Has that ever been something you considered?
Yeah, and that's what I mean, for us, that's a little bit of a splurge move. Take Dreams in Cancun. I booked the highest suite they had, and it was kind of a one-off trip because it was my wife's birthday. We went for Thanksgiving, and I booked the the highest suite with a hot tub on the balcony and all that good stuff. And it was really expensive, but I don't do that very often, so it was really fun to do. Another option we didn't talk about is I know people are rarely fans of portals, but in Europe, if you kind of get off the loyalty plan and get into the portals, you can find a lot of places in the locations you want. They're not pretty. Some of them have like 4 single beds in a row, like a really weird looking setup. But if you're one of those people where the destination is the fun and not the hotel, you can get by with some portal stays, and that's something I've kind of gotten into lately. At least having it as an option, whereas before I would probably never even look at that.
Yeah. So what type of portals do you tend to use? And I mean, some people criticize portals for, oftentimes being more expensive than direct bookings. Has that been your experience or not really? And what are the advantages or disadvantages to using portals?
I think it really matters. It's like everything else. You have to do your work and you do your research. A couple examples. The Max Brown Hotel we're staying at in Amsterdam was from the Capital One portal. I do think it might have been a little bit more expensive, and I'm talking about 1 or 2 percentage points difference. But you're using that credit, so you have to use the credit somehow. But another example was I took my dad to Panama back in January, and I used how everybody cries about the City Premier, the $100 hotel credit within the portal that you can't use.
Yes.
I found a Marriott AC in a neighborhood, and I kind of wanted to stay in a neighborhood. It was cheaper than the Marriott price. It was fully refundable, and it was just over the $500 to trigger that credit. So overall, it was a great redemption. Now, I didn't get my Marriott hotel loyalty, but what am I getting from Marriott anyway? I have gold status there, and I also earned 10 thank you points per dollar on that booking. So I would probably take 10 thank you points over 8 Marriott points anyway.
Yeah, 6x on a credit card, 10x directly with Marriott. And I mean, yeah, 10x City is better than 10x Marriott for sure. I'm curious if you've ever considered using points on these portals. For example, Chase Sapphire Reserve. Some people use their points to get 1.5 cents per point. If you have the U.S. Bank Altitude Reserve and you can book travel through them, get 1.5 cents per point. I mean, Sean and I kind of don't prefer this method of using points, but I know some people might find it useful. So I'm curious, Luke, what your take is on that.
I don't think that would be in my first few options. It would be hard for me to do that. And just because there's so many different ways to go about doing it. And I know you hear a lot of people say, as long as I don't have to pay cash. And I want to go back to one of your guys' older podcasts about these points are currency. And I actually watched that from my local airport. I was by myself, so I can't remember where I was going, but it completely changed my perspective on those points. And I get so angry when people say I didn't have to use any of my money. Well, yeah, you did. You used money. You just didn't use cash. But I don't think I'm interested in normally using Chase UR points to book a hotel or absolutely no Amex MR points. But I'm also somebody who I have the means to just pay cash. And I know some people are not quite in that position or don't put themselves in that position. But I would rather earn then get a very, very poor redemption in most cases. So, yeah, I booked.
Yeah,
a
I mean, I'm
Capital
seeing
One.
this trend pop up on YouTube where people are making videos like cents per point doesn't matter or is overrated. So I can tell you're not one of those people.
Listen, I sometimes say things that I know I shouldn't, and the people who don't care about cents per point, there's probably two camps. One of them, they earn way more points than they ever travel, so it doesn't matter anyway. And the other camp is they don't do this anyway, so they can tell you that they just take a low cents per point valuation because they're only taking 2 trips to grandma's house 2 cities away anyway. They're not doing anything cool. And I know a lot of people would be mad about hearing that, but
No,
Yeah,
I mean, that
because
makes
people
sense.
are
Though.
like-
Yeah, I think a lot of people that don't care about cents per point, like they're not thinking about it right. It's like you said, it's like it's still a currency, right? It's like when people say like, "Oh, I didn't have to pay cash," it doesn't matter at all. I imagine someone that like signs up to do Uber driving and then considers all the money they make from that like free money. And then they just like go gamble it or something because like, it doesn't matter. It was free money. But it's like, no, once the money hits your account, it's money. Same thing with the points, right? It's still like a currency. It still has value. So depending on how you choose to redeem it, that's still like important.
Yeah.
And one
Or
thing no
people,
one can answer for me is if your redemption value doesn't matter at all, how could your earning value possibly matter either? And aren't they both two sides of the coin?
That's a very
Or,
good
I mean,
point, actually. I've never heard someone say that. That's a really, because like people focus, I need to get all these points and all these different things. But if you redeem them poorly, it doesn't matter anyways, because it's like you could have just earned less and redeemed them well. That's like the same equivalent. Like, I think that's a very good point.
These are the guys that
one
walk
thing
into
I've
the car
heard-
dealership and pay sticker price.
I mean, one thing I've heard people say is like, I do credit cards so I can travel for free, not because I want to spend more money. And for example, and therefore I would never buy points. And to that, I tell them, no, every time you earn a point, you bought it essentially. Like, for example, if you put spend on a Hyatt card and earned 1x Hyatt points on it, you purchased a Hyatt point at 2 cents per point because you could have put that purchase on a 2% flat cashback card, non-cash otherwise. The fact that you forwent that cashback and took that 1 Hyatt point instead means that you actually bought the points. So there's actually no difference between buying points and earning points on a credit card.
And going back to your original question, I think it's almost always going to be a better option to purchase points than booking that same hotel through most travel portals. I mean, you're probably going to do better.
Yeah,
That's a very good point. If
IHG
you're paying
and,
cash, you can just buy points instead.
if they're on sale. So like for
Sure,
example, IHG, I love as an example because you can always buy them at half a cent per point, but their redemptions usually are much cheaper at the half cent per point valuation than if you paid cash for it. I've used that hack a number
This
of
is
times.
I'm a points buyer.
Me too. I want to bring this up as well. This is something like I had heard about, but I didn't actually realize like how much you could like abuse this. Like people don't realize you can just buy unlimited IHG points like on sale. Where if you go to IHG points plus cash, and I use this because I was trying to book a stay and I needed to top up, but the IHG like points weren't on sale. So I went to like points plus cash, and it was effectively after you factor in like the Chase 10x or whatever on the IHG card and all that. Because remember, you earn 10x points when you do points plus cash because you earn it on the cash portion. You're effectively buying it at like 0.56 cents each if you find a right hotel. So you can buy unlimited, like uncapped points at that amount, which is kind of nuts because then what you can like, if you're able to get like a significant discount, you could just apply that to like every IHG stay you do. There's no cap. There's no like, oh, I have to get alternate accounts and transfer it in or none of that stuff. It's literally just, you can buy as many as you want.
Sean, can you back up a little bit and kind of explain how the points plus cash trick works
so
for people that might not be familiar?
IHG has both like you can, if you don't have enough points for a reservation, you can do a points plus cash reservation where it's effectively like, oh, it's a discount on the cash price. And then, you pay some of your points. But how it works is if you cancel that reservation, they don't refund you any cash. They refund you the entire amount of points of what it would have cost if you would have paid points in its entirety. And so if you do the math on a lot of these hotels that offer it, when you do like, okay, how many points am I, buying in this case for compared to the cash price I'm paying, it's about 0.6 to 0.55 cents each. So if you find a good hotel at 0.56 cents each, you're able to just, make a bunch of points plus cash reservations and then immediately cancel them all. And then it's like you just paid cash for a bunch of IHG points in your account. And then you can just, use those IHG points however you want.
Right. But that's tough I think that's a tough sell for a lot of people because, most of the stuff we do on our podcasts and videos is we're trying to get people from portals to semi-expert mode of just transferring points out. You're talking about a couple levels above that. And that's probably why it's not well known, because I think that might fly over some folks' heads.
I think that's a good point. Like, oftentimes I explain to my friends about like points and miles hobby. They think I'm insane or wasting my time, and I show them pictures of like this cool flight I went on, and then they suddenly become interested. So I'm wondering, Luke, I think you mentioned like you know other people who just cut the check to the travel advisor or whatnot. Like, how do you help beginners to like understand this game? I find it very challenging to give advice when people are like, oh, what credit card should I get? Because the answer usually is it depends on your strategy, it depends on what you do, and then you try to explain all of these different programs, and it's sort of a steep learning curve.
I have a couple different answers for that. I have one that's not what you want to hear, but it's kind of funny, so let me tell you that one first. When a normal person asks me about that, this is what I used to do. I used to spend 2 hours having to sit down, drink a cup of coffee, and explain different things, and give them sort of a roadmap of a couple credit cards to get first. And I give them my referral link and say, hey, just use this link, take the guesswork out. And what I found was even the people that were my friends or relatively close to me or whatever, if they listened at all, they would all seemingly purposely just not use the referral link. So, and it was so consistent that I just said, you know what? At some point, I can't give these people an hour or two of my time when I know they're either not going to do it or they're not going to do it how I tell them to. So, for most of the casuals in my life, I really don't explain it to them. I always say, hey, just check out my videos. But for people that I know are going to be into it, it's a difficult conversation because you guys understand it takes time, effort, knowledge, work, and then you have to have sort of your own style on top of that to make it work for you. The people in my circles, they are, like I was sitting at lunch with a couple guys, and they wanted to go to Latin America. I'm not sure where. Somewhere in the Caribbean. And I was like, man, I just got back from Panama. For what you guys are looking for, I would recommend Cartagena. It's really cheap from Miami. And they just looked at each other and go, I don't think that's on whatever travel agent. It was like Caribbean Deals or something. I go, oh, you guys are paying for it. And they're like, yeah. I go, never mind. That's like, so I think it's difficult. It's just really hard. Here's the only way I found to be really successful at it. I have a Navy buddy who once a year or so we go meet somewhere. I met him in Qatar a couple years ago, and last year I met him in Prague, Czech Republic. And I think the first trip where he got on board the plane from Qatar to go to Dubai, and he had to sit in the back, and I sat in the front, and I ate salted nuts and champagne and all this good stuff. And the hotels we went to, I got them on points. So we're staying at the Ritz-Carlton Dubai Marina, and we've got a butler and things like that. I think seeing it and doing it, now he's a Capital One guy. So, I think they have to experience it because for most people, most normal people, I don't think they know those things exist. I don't think they know that there's a butler at some Ritz-Carltons. I don't think they know that when you walk into some five-star hotel rooms, they have a giant fruit plate in the shape of an elephant or something. They just don't really get it. And a lot of people aren't into that. So I think once they do it, and that's the best way to get your player two on board. Like, why would I listen to you, which card, which one to apply for? Okay, come to Frankfurt, Germany with me in the front of Singapore Airlines. Once you do that and you're being treated with hospitality from people who who are professionals at hospitality, changes your mindset. And oh, listen, now which one should I apply for now? Okay, that's what I thought. You got a taste of it.
I think that is like an amazing point. And like that's something for me. When I went to the Maldives for the first time, I think it like permanently altered my brain chemistry. Because now whenever I'm like at home, I'm like, there are people there right now. Like that exists. Like that wasn't like some kind of fantasy. Like you can actually go there. Like again, like I could go again theoretically. And like there's all these amazing places to go. And it's like not just, like what you see in the movies. Like it actually exists. Like I think going there makes people realize like, oh my God, this is something I could actually like do. And it makes you like, it made me want to like work very hard like in this space as well. Cause it's like, I want to go back to these places. Like how can, and it makes it tough because it does like raise your standards, right? It's like, I need to go back there. That's like something I just really want to do. I can't, it'll be tough to be as satisfied if I'm not able to go see those places when I know they exist, right? And if you don't know they exist, it's like, oh, it's not as, you don't know what you're missing out on. But now I know what I'm missing out on if I don't go.
Yeah, and I think some people, hospitality is a big deal to me. And I think it's because, obviously you guys know, here in America, we don't have the hospitality industry. We have the hotel industry. And I think in certain cultures, they are just better at it. They're just much more talented in that business. And I think once you experience that, and honestly, there's some people that are not going to be into that. I don't think my father would appreciate a butler or, someone assigned to your room to take care of the business. I don't think he would appreciate that. But I think if you do experience it and you do appreciate it, and like you said, it takes hard work and it takes certain resources to get that. So you do deserve it. So once you realize that all this hard work that I put in and all these things that I've accomplished have led to this, you learn to appreciate it, and you learn that it is better in other cultures.
Yeah, and I think we are about at time, so that is a good place to wrap up today's episode. So thank you all for watching, and thank you so much, Luke, for having you on. It's such a pleasure to get to talk to you and hear your perspective. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel. If you want to apply for a credit card, please consider using one of our links in the description below. It greatly helps support our channel. Please also check out Luke's Points and Miles. I'll leave a link in the description below and go subscribe to him. And Sean, why don't you plug our Discord?
Yes, if you want to connect with an elite group of award travelers 100% for free and learn a ton, check out the Travel Lane Discord group at the link in the description. You will learn a ton, I promise you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.